What is up, guys? In today's video, we're going to be going over a bunch of tips that will help you win more and get more kills in the zero build mode. If you guys do find this video helpful or informative, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you would like to see more, and comment down below how many crowns you have this season. I'm interested to see how many crowns you guys have been able to get. So far, I'm at, I think, 132, but comment down below how many crowns you have. I am actually really interested to hear that because we're a decent amount of ways through this season. I think we're approaching the halfway point. And another thing I want to say is that a lot of these tips you may have already heard of, or some of them you may have already heard of, but there's probably guaranteed to be a few things in this video you haven't heard of before or haven't really thought of. And even if you have heard of some of these things, I feel like a lot of people know certain things about the game or know tips, but don't really put them into practice until they're reminded of it. And then they kind of realize that they haven't paid much attention to that at all in quite some time. So make sure you watch the entire video. Even if you have heard some of these things, you can benefit from hearing them again, I think, and maybe get a new perspective on them. Before we get into the content, I just want to say that this video is sponsored by the Coldest Water. They make these insulated water bottles that are designed to keep your water cold for several hours, and they hold large quantities of water. If you're someone who does outdoor activities or goes to the gym, they're really great for that sort of thing. But I also like them just because gaming, they are insulated, so none of the water will seep through or condensate or leak or anything, so you don't have to worry about your hands getting wet when you take a drink. There will be a link down in the description below where you can check them out, and they're the sponsor for today's video. The first thing we're going to talk about is going to be shockwaves. I think shockwaves are the single most important item in the zero build game mode. A lot of people gas cow catchers, and cow catchers are good, and I will take them if I don't have shockwaves, but I think shockwaves are more important because you can use them in more ways. If you get caught in a bad spot, you can use shockwaves, which I feel is the main reason why people like cow catchers, because you can create cover wherever you need them. But shockwaves fix that. If you ever get shot first, you could just shockwave to safety, which is really nice. You can also use them to push enemy players, which also is really nice. It can be somewhat awkward to transition initial tags with an AUG into a kill if you don't have shockwaves, and shockwaves just corrects that. And getting your kills as fast as possible is really important in the zero build mode, in my opinion. And there's also a lot of other uses for shockwaves, which we will get into later on in the video. I think in the zero build mode, it's really important to play edge of zone. I see a lot of people setting up center zone, and that can be somewhat good if you have really good cover or a really OP spot like a blimp or a mountain, something that's worth controlling. But if you just go center zone and sit into a bush or sit behind a rock or a tree, you are really hurting yourself in the long run, because you can be shot from so many different angles. And since we can't build to protect ourselves, you're typically going to be better off playing edge of zone and not drawing a lot of attention to yourself. If you're in a spot that's way too good, a lot of people are going to be paying attention to that. And unless you're able to defend yourself well, you're probably going to die. And no matter how good you are, there's really not much you can do about getting shot in the back in this mode. So playing edge of zone will reduce that a decent amount. There are times where being center is more valuable, but you just got to take that trade-off. Just know if you're center, a lot of people are going to be edge looking at you. And if you're in a spot that's really valuable, a lot of people are going to focus that. So you're going to have to play accordingly. And just being edge of zone kind of limits how many angles you can be shot from, because you have the zone there. There's likely not going to be anybody coming from there. And this is mainly an end game thing. Second or third zone, you don't really need to be worrying about this. But end game, how you position and being edge of zone just eliminates a decent amount of areas that you have to be worried about. And the more areas you have to be worried about, the less you can cover at one time, and the more likely you're going to get caught off guard. So I think playing the edge zone in game is really beneficial. Another thing that's really important, I think, is taking splashes, chug splashes, over other healing items, because they have no use time. In normal game modes, you can box up and take a mini or take a big or take your med kit, but you can't do that in zero build. So having splashes to instantly heal is really nice, especially since a lot of people use shockwaves, like I was talking about before. If you have an AUG fight versus somebody and you both hit each other for 80 and you have shockwaves and they don't, or splashes and they don't, you can splash a few times and then push them with your shockwaves. And if they're drinking a big or drinking minis, you're just going to, not only are you healing faster, but you're going to completely be able to get the advantage on them. If someone tags you when they're pushing you, you can splash in the time where maybe you wouldn't have been able to get a mini or a big off. I just think splashes are by far the best healing item in this game mode, because you cannot box up and heal yourself. So you want to be really aware of where the cooler spawns are, especially in the areas around where you spawn. You want to be able to hit those coolers up and get as many splashes as you can. I think splashes are the best healing item in the game. Another thing that we're going to talk about that I think is really important for this game mode, and a lot of you probably already know but might not necessarily be focusing on it as much as you should, and that is going to be that right shoulder peaks are really OP. In this game mode, you can't protect yourself as much as you can with builds, so being in situations where you have right shoulder peaks is going to be the determining factor between who gets a kill. If you're behind a tree and you peek from the right, you are way more likely to be safe than if you peek from the left. Because of the way the camera or the like character model is set up in this game, you have to expose more of yourself when peeking from the left than you do peeking from the right. And I feel like a lot of people know that. It's been a basic part of Fortnite for really long. But where I see a lot of people get it wrong is if you're pushing an enemy that's behind a piece of cover, let's just say a rock or a tree, you want to push them in such a way where you have a right shoulder peek. If you go from the right of the rock or tree, you're going to have much better angles on them than if you go to the left. So just in as many situations as you can, try to get right shoulder peeks. If you were unaware of this before and now you're finally aware of it, it's just going to make your life so much easier. If you're in a spot where someone's pushing you, or if there's multiple people pushing you in like a team game mode, you want to constantly be backing up into right shoulder peeks. This works really well in buildings. And the more you employ this, the better you're going to do in game. So just make sure you're always peeking from the right. Another thing that's important in this game mode that I think a lot of people know, but I still see people getting wrong, at least when I play the game, is that the higher fire rate shotguns are actually better than the pump. Traditionally in Fortnite, the pump shotgun has always been like the premier weapon because you can shoot the weapon and then build to protect yourself. Like the main disadvantage of the pump shotgun is the fire rate. But without building, you can't just like remove its downside of fire rate, and the higher fire rate shotguns end up taking over. So I would recommend using the drum shotty or the auto shotgun over the pump shotgun pretty much always in this game mode, unless there's like a huge rarity difference. If you have like a white auto or a white drum or a purple pump, then like sure, the pump is probably better. But in most situations, the drum shotgun is just going to be the best shotgun for this game mode, and nothing else can really compare. Like I cannot count how many times in this game mode I've been fighting someone who has a pump and I have a drum and I just easily win that fight. Another reason why pumps were traditionally good in Fortnite is because they could one-hit kill. But with the overshield, the amount of damage that you're doing somebody compared to the amount of HP they have is just even less. And the Chapter 3 pumps don't even do that much damage as it is. So I think it's always better taking the spammier shotguns, because no matter which shotgun you're using, it's going to take multiple shots to kill. And pump SMG is a good combo for normals because you can deal a decent amount of damage, like percent-wise of their HP with one pump shot. But in the zero build mode with the overshield, I just think pumps are really not that valuable. Blimps are incredibly overpowered in this game mode. Pretty much all you need to do to win is just control blimps. If you have a blimp in your in-game zone, you want to control it. And how I play the game mode typically is I just go from blimp to blimp. If there's a blimp, like let's say Coney's blimp is in zone, we can go there, sit on top of it, and just get easy beams on people and just remove people from the game really easily. And you're really not in danger while doing this, and the people under you can't build to protect themselves. And then once that blimp is out of zone, you can just use the cannon to cannon yourself to another blimp. It's really easy. The blimps are incredibly overpowered, so I'd recommend taking advantage of them. I know it can be kind of lame, but if you aren't taking advantage of it, someone else is, and you're probably going to die to it. And even if you think it's lame to camp up there, the amount of the map you can see is just so much at once. You're way more likely to find people and get kills by controlling a blimp than you actually are walking around and looking for people, just because you can see such a large area of the map all at once from the blimp. This next thing is going to be another thing that's super obvious, but I see people getting wrong, and that is going to be that you want to use natural cover whenever possible. I know it's obvious, but the amount of people I shoot at that don't seem to be like using rocks or trees next to them and just continuing to stand out in the open shooting at me in this game mode is like very surprising. It's been out for several weeks and you'd think people would get better. And another thing that's really obvious that people do wrong is they're not strafing enough. If you're in an AUG fight with somebody mid-range, you want to be strafing, you want to be crouch spamming, probably not jumping because that's going to make it to where you can't ADS, but moving your character model side to side and crouch spamming can cause the opposing player to miss shots, and that can be the difference maker when it comes to a mid-range fight. Even if it isn't the difference between you dying, it might be the difference between you taking like 40 HP versus only taking like 20 damage. And that will matter as time goes on and the more fights you take. So you want to be strafing and making yourself a hard target to hit. This is another thing that's like really common in other shooters that I feel like Fortnite players just aren't as used to because of how Fortnite is. Also, you want to be team shotting whenever you can in team game modes. So if you're playing trios and you're fighting another trio, it's kind of beneficial for everybody to focus the same player at the same time, because you're going to get a knock much faster and you're going to force the other team to respond to that. They might panic and not know what to do. If they go for the res right away, then there's only one player protecting them. And even if both players continue shooting at you, you've cut their firepower down by a third. So you pretty much always want a team shot whenever possible. Call out which skin you're going for when you and your teammates are fighting another team like mid-range with AUGs. And even if you don't really have good comms with your teammates or they don't call out which skin they're shooting at, just pay attention to which ones they're shooting and then start shooting that one as well. And just getting rid of some of the firepower on an opposing team makes your life so much easier, and it makes it so much easier to like pressure that situation. Once you have a knock, everything is way easier. So definitely team shot whenever you can and just get someone out of the fight really quickly. We talked about before how shockwaves are incredibly important, and the 7 members actually sell shockwaves. So if you go to Sanctuary, the Foundation is always selling shockwaves. If you go to Synops, the Scientist is always selling shockwaves. And there's a few other 7 members that spawn at various vaults. They kind of change from game to game, and they sell shockwaves as well. And just if you want to be guaranteed shockwaves or you just want to win, I would recommend landing at Synops or Sanctuary. Those are like the best spots in this game mode, I think. And they both have a decent amount of cover as well. The Anvil rocket launcher and the heavy sniper can be really good for destroying cover that opponents have, and they can also destroy bushes in the case of the Anvil. And the reason why this is really important is that, like we talked about before, natural cover is pretty much all you have to protect yourself, unless they're carrying cow catchers, but a lot of people don't. So natural cover is all they're going to have. So if you destroy the cover that they have, that fight is going to be really winnable and really easy for you, especially if you have cover and their team doesn't. So it might be worth carrying one of these items. I wouldn't necessarily carry it in solos, but having somebody in like trios or quads carry one of these items to destroy cover can actually be really beneficial. And they are good at destroying cars, which are somewhat valuable in this game mode, more so than normal Fortnite. Shockwaves and cow catchers can also be used to get people out of bushes. You can throw the cow catcher at the bush, and I'm pretty sure it destroys it. And shockwaves, if somebody is in a bush and you throw a shockwave in it, it will force them out of the bush and destroy the bush. So this can be really helpful. And if somebody's camping behind cover, you could use shockwaves to get them off. You can knock them into zone. There's so many uses for shockwaves, like I said already. But you can also use them to get people off of high ground. If somebody's camping on one of those spots on the blimp that we talked about is really valuable and really hard to get somebody off of, you can shockwave yourself up and then throw a shockwave at them, and it's going to knock them off of the blimp. It's kind of scuffed to use 2 shockwaves for that, but if you were worried about that fight or you didn't think you were going to be able to win it and get them off of the blimp, just shockwaving them off is the easiest way. This also works on mountains or like rooftops potentially, depending on the situation. I think the AUG is significantly better than every other assault rifle in the game. I think that's really obvious. This is another thing that I think most people already know, but the AUG is way better. If you hit 2 bullets to the head, you're dealing upwards of like 80 to 100 damage depending on rarity. And even the body shots of the AUG are more than the MK's headshots, and I feel like the MK is the only other comparable weapon. I don't really see people using the thermal, so I would recommend taking the AUG over any other assault rifle. Some people don't like the burst, but once you get used to that, it is really good, and I would definitely recommend using it. Sliding can be really helpful in this game mode. Pretty much the only way I see people use sliding is like while traveling or while getting shot. But if you're pushing somebody that's hiding behind a piece of cover or someone that's hiding behind a doorway, catching them with a slide can really catch them off guard and make your life a lot easier. So start using sliding in fights. This is another thing that is in a lot of other games like Apex or Warzone. Using movement in fights is like really important, and you don't really see that in Fortnite because building was so important for most of the time. But without building, I think being able to use your sliding, your sprinting, mantling, all of these things in fights is really beneficial. So use sliding in fights when you can, and it's mainly a close range thing. This really wouldn't benefit you at long range. Third parties are more problematic in the zero build mode. I think everybody kind of gets that at this point. And the reason why that matters is the way you position yourself and the way you fight can contribute to you getting third partied. If you're in a wide open area and you're just standing in the middle of zone, you're more likely to get third partied. If you're fighting a team for a really long time, you need to be cognizant that like third parties are going to happen. If you're in a spot that's really good and you're fighting teams, you're going to be like third partied. Just always be aware of third parties, and if you're fighting for too long, it might just be worth leaving because the third party like potential in this game mode is really problematic and it is really hard to deal with. So you want to end your fights as fast as possible and pretty much always be in spots where it's difficult for people to third party you. Like the way you navigate the map and the way you position your character matters so much more in the zero build mode because you can't just immediately create cover wherever you want, like traditional Fortnite. And I think that is one thing that like people who have traditionally played Fortnite only and haven't really other played BRs really struggle with in this game mode. So you need to always be aware of your surroundings and like kind of expect where the opposing like other like third party teams are going to be coming from, and just be ready for them. Another thing that kind of goes with this is you don't want to really shoot at people unless you're decently sure you can get the kill, especially in game. If you're fighting a bunch of people in game, there's going to be somebody out there that just wants to third party you, and they might be hiding in a bush or behind a rock or in a tree, even with jetpacks now. Just try to kill people as fast as possible. If you only have like an opportunity to shoot one burst at somebody, it might not be worth shooting at them. Because you're just going to draw a lot of attention to yourself. And if you're in team game modes, try to, like, if you approach a team and they don't know where you are, but you know they're there, try to, like, 3, 2, 1, 1. Like, call out which skin you're all going to target and then count down and all shoot at this person as fast as possible. And then just get rid of one of the people like we were talking about before. Just make sure you shoot it, like, you're somewhat sure you can get a kill when you shoot at somebody. I have a lot of people start fighting me, and they have, like, no potential to actually kill me. And, like, they're basically just giving up their position and wasting their time by shooting at me. This is once again another thing that's like really important in other shooters that I feel like Fortnite players just don't really think about because of how different Fortnite was. But zero build plays a lot more like other shooters. Another thing that is also really important in other shooters is when you're rotating, move from cover to cover. And if you have like two options, you can either go like right up the middle where there's no cover, or you could go like around one way. It might take more time, but there's more cover. You want to choose the option that has more cover. This is another thing that just wasn't present in Fortnite before because you could just build wherever you wanted. But knowing where natural cover is and considering that when rotating is really, really important in this game mode. I think the combat SMG is just straight up better than the Stinger SMG. There might be a case to make for the Stinger in build modes because it does do more structure damage. But in zero build, I think you always want to be taking the combat SMG over the Stinger SMG, just like point blank period. I don't really think there's any reason to take the Stinger sub. Cars can be really helpful like we were talking about before. Not only is it just traveling in this game mode a lot more dangerous, but in an in-game, there might not be cover for you to rotate, and using a car will allow you to get from one place to another faster. You're less likely to get shot, and you can use the car as cover. Another thing you can do is use the cars to destroy bushes, and some in-games bushes are really annoying. You'll just have hella teams camping in bushes. So you can use a car to destroy a bush, especially if it has a cow catcher on it. You can even destroy like trees and rocks with it. And that might be valuable to have somebody on your team drop you off and then destroy a rock or a tree that another team might use later on. I think the cars have a lot more value in the zero build mode. And the final thing we're going to talk about is going to be that you need to use the new mechanics like sprint and mantle whenever you can. This is another thing that should go without saying, but like early game, being able to jump on rooftops and position that way, or even mid game if you're fighting around a house, I catch a lot of people off guard with like mantling like that. And you can even use it to get on top of rocks, which can be really beneficial. If someone's camping behind a rock and you just attack them from above, it oftentimes catches them off guard completely. So just try to use these new mechanics whenever you can and think of new ways to use them because it can give you the advantage in a fight. That's going to be it for this video. If you guys did enjoy it, like I said before, give it a like, subscribe. This is a lot. And if you do want to comment down below, let me know how many crown wins you have so far this season. I would be interested in seeing that. So thanks for watching.